Welcome to the Emotions of Life channel. Like the video, subscribe and enjoy the story. It was a cold night, and the millionaire had just returned from a long business trip. His tired body and mind, flooded with worries, seemed to beg for rest. Upon entering his mansion, the last thing he expected to find was something so surreal. The house was silent as always. The echo of his footsteps on the marble floor reflected the grandeur of his residence, a spacious and cold mansion as he himself called it. He automatically headed toward the main hallway, his thoughts drifting between his tight schedule and upcoming commitments. But as he turned the corner into the living room, his eyes locked onto something that froze his body and mind. A woman was lying on the floor of his living room, covered by a worn-out blanket. She was in an uncomfortable position, sleeping deeply as if she had been there for hours or even days. Her dark, disheveled hair fell over her face, and her curled-up body looked even more vulnerable under the soft light of the room. There was no sign of luggage or anything suggesting she was there for a reason. She was simply there as if she were an invisible part of the house. For a moment he stood still, unsure of what to do. His security instincts kicked in, and he stepped forward cautiously, observing the woman with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. How did she get in? The door was locked. He had no staff in the house that night. She didn't look like a typical intruder. There was something different about her. The millionaire took a step closer, and the sound of her calm breathing was the only thing breaking the silence. He observed her more closely, noticing the details of her face. She didn't seem like an ordinary homeless person, just someone looking for shelter. There was something in her expression, even as she slept, that carried a deep sadness and an almost tangible mystery. A chill ran down his spine. Not knowing what else to do, he crouched beside her and gently touched her shoulder to wake her up. His fingers trembled slightly, but he managed to keep them steady. She stirred slowly as if coming out of a deep dream. Gradually, her eyes opened, revealing a lost and confused gaze. When she saw the man in front of her, her eyes gleamed, not with fear, but with something more intense, as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She didn't get up right away as if expecting something. The millionaire stood there, unsure whether he should demand an explanation or remove her from his home immediately. Then she broke the silence with a sentence that left him speechless. "You don't know me, but you need me." The shock was instant. He opened his mouth to ask what she meant, but the words wouldn't come out. He was standing before a woman who, somehow, seemed to understand more about his life than he did himself. She slowly got up, unhurried, and her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made his heart race. "I know what you're thinking," she continued. "You're wondering how I got here. But the truth is you called me. Without knowing it, you called me." The millionaire took a step back, incredulous. That didn't make any sense. He had never seen her before. How could he have called a stranger into his house, to sleep on the floor as if she belonged there? She smiled enigmatically, as if she knew exactly what he was feeling, as if she were reading his thoughts. "You'll understand everything in time. But for now, just know that your life is about to change. I am the key to what's coming." A chill ran down his spine, but before he could ask anything else, she was already moving away, as if waiting for something he had yet to understand. The only thing lingering in his mind was the unsettling feeling that this woman wasn't just an intruder, she was someone meant to cross his path in a way he couldn't yet comprehend. Still in disbelief over what had just happened, the millionaire sat on the living room sofa, trying to process the situation. The woman, who introduced herself only as Isabella, remained calm despite the chaos she had just caused. She settled into one of the armchairs, watching him with an unsettling serenity. He studied her, trying to understand more about this mysterious figure who had appeared without explanation. Isabella had something enigmatic about her, a glow in her eyes that blended pain and wisdom, as if she had seen the worst the world had to offer yet still remained standing. There was a mystery in her presence, hovering in the air like a fog no one could dissipate. With a cup of tea in hand, she began to speak, unhurried. Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight that made each word resonate in the millionaire's mind. "I know you have a lot of questions," she said, looking directly at him. "And you have every right to wonder who I am, how I got here, and what I'm doing in your house." He watched her, his eyes fixed on hers, searching for answers. He couldn't understand how she could speak so naturally, as if she had been in his home for years. "Are you going to tell me how you got in?" he asked, his voice laced with skepticism. Isabella smiled slightly, as if she had anticipated the question. "Getting in wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was reaching you. I didn't come here by accident." The millionaire felt a knot tighten in his stomach. With every sentence, she seemed to dig deeper into his world, making him feel more vulnerable, as if he were standing on the verge of a revelation he couldn't escape. She continued without hesitation. I came because you called me. You may not understand it now, but your life has always been shaped by choices that led you here. And I am the consequence of those choices. He furrowed his brow, trying to connect her words to something that made sense in his own life, but nothing seemed to fit. You're not making any sense. Who are you really? Isabella looked at him for a moment, almost as if she were debating whether to reveal more. Finally, she said, I am someone you should have met years ago. I am someone who has stood on the outskirts of your life, watching, waiting for the right moment. That moment has arrived. A chill ran through the millionaire. He wanted to ask more, needed to understand, but something about Isabella's demeanor made him hesitate. She wasn't here to tell her story in a simple way. She had a mission, something deeper. I don't have time for games, he said, trying to keep his composure, but his voice betrayed a slight tension. Just tell me what you want. Isabella stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the street as if contemplating something far beyond what the eye could see. I don't want anything from you. Or rather, I don't want what you think I want. What I brought with me isn't something you can refuse. I brought answers, and those answers could change everything in your life. She turned, her gaze now more intense, and he felt as if she were piercing into his soul. I am the key to what's coming. And believe me, you're going to need me more than you can imagine. The millionaire was stunned. What she was saying seemed impossible, yet her eyes held an unshakable conviction. He knew something was happening, something beyond his control. She continued, now more serious. You think everything you've built so far is enough. But it's not. What you've done until now was just the preparation. The real story is about to begin. And you can't run from it. The tension in the room was palpable. The millionaire found himself facing a choice: confront this woman and try to unravel her mystery, or move on with his life, ignoring her words as if this were all some elaborate trick. But deep down he knew it wouldn't be that easy. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was telling the truth. Isabella set the teacup down on the table and locked eyes with him. You have no idea how much this will change your life. But I do. And I'm here to help you, or destroy you. The millionaire didn't know what to expect from Isabella. Her presence, once mysterious and intriguing, was beginning to reveal something beyond his control. After hours of conversation, he still found himself tangled in her words, trying to decipher whether she was a hallucination, a con, or something far deeper than he was ready to understand. The next morning he invited her to breakfast, an attempt to break the ice. He thought he could learn more about her, trying to understand where she came from and what her real intentions were behind her words. But something about her started to disturb him more and more. Her unsettling calmness and the way she seemed to observe everything around her, as if she were about to give a lecture, made him feel an odd sense of discomfort. During the meal, the conversation was polite, but there was a tension in the air that he couldn't shake. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, Isabella said something that left him completely stunned. You feel powerful, don't you? But I know you're not in control of anything. Her words were like a sharp blade, cutting through the silence in the room. The millionaire looked at her, trying to hide the surprise and the anger that began to rise within him. What do you mean by that? He asked, his tone now colder. Isabella continued, unfazed by his discomfort. I've been watching you. Not just today but for many years. What you've built, the life you lead, is a facade. You think you have control over everything, but the truth is, you are controlled by your fears and the ghosts of your past. Every step you've taken, every choice you've made, has been an attempt to escape something much bigger, much darker, something you refuse to face. The millionaire stood up from the table, his anger growing inside him. He had never been challenged like this by anyone, let alone by a woman who had appeared in his life so suddenly. You don't know anything about me, he shouted, his face flushed with indignation. I worked my entire life to build what I have. No one controls my life but me. Isabella watched him calmly, as if analyzing every word he said. You've been lying to yourself for a long time. Thinking you have control is just an illusion. And the more you resist, the more the truth will hurt. He stepped closer to her, his eyes locked onto hers, as if trying to force her to understand that he wasn't willing to tolerate more insults. I'm not weak. I'm not a victim. If you came here to humiliate me, you're going about it the wrong way. Isabella stood up as well, unhurried, and looked directly into his eyes, challenging him. I am not here to humiliate you. I am here to open your eyes. What you see as power is just the surface. What you need to face is buried much deeper, and you're going to need help to confront it. The millionaire, now exasperated, turned and walked to the window, looking out at the horizon, trying to regain some composure. He wanted to throw her out, to tell her to leave and never come back. But something in her words, something in the truth she was revealing, stopped him from doing so. He knew something bigger was happening here, something he couldn't ignore. "And what do you expect from me?" he asked, his voice lower now, still pulsing with adrenaline from the confrontation. "What do you want me to do?" Isabella took a step toward him, her expression serious. "I want you to look at yourself. To face what you've been running from your whole life. To confront the man you truly are, not the one you think you are. Only then will you understand what really matters." The millionaire remained silent, his mind spinning with everything she had just said. He had always considered himself in control of his life, always believed that his choices had led him to the top. But now he was beginning to question everything. Who was he really? What had he been trying to hide from himself? Isabella was not just a simple visitor. She was a presence challenging his worldview, and no matter how much he tried to push her away, he knew she had touched something deep inside him. He didn't know what would happen next, but something inside told him that his journey was about to change forever. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. The millionaire spent the following days in a state of mental confusion. Isabella, with her enigmatic and confrontational words, wouldn't leave his mind. He tried to follow his normal routine, but the feeling that he was being pulled into something bigger, something he didn't fully understand, constantly haunted him. She continued to stay in his house, like a silent shadow, watching him with piercing eyes whenever he passed by. What did she really want? What was happening to him? He, who had always been in control of everything, now found himself lost, as if floating in an ocean with no direction. It was on one of those nights, while he was trying to find some clarity in his thoughts, that she appeared. Isabella entered his office, where he sat alone, reviewing papers and planning the next steps of his empire. But when she walked in, he noticed something was different. It wasn't just her presence that seemed stronger, there was something in the air that made everything feel imminent. "You still don't understand, do you?" she said, breaking the silence. The millionaire lifted his eyes to her but didn't respond. He knew she was talking about something he couldn't grasp, but somehow he felt it was about to be revealed. She approached him slowly and sat in the chair across from him, uninvited. "You think you're in control, but everything you've built, all your wealth, is just a distraction. You're afraid to face what really matters." The millionaire frowned, trying to control his irritation. "I don't need you to tell me how I feel, Isabella. I'm successful because I know what I'm doing. I know what I want." Isabella smiled, but there was something in her smile that sent a chill down his spine. "You still don't understand me. What you think you control is not what really matters. And that's why you're lost." He stood up from his chair, impatient. "Then what do you want from me? What are you trying to tell me?" "I'm trying to show you who you really are and what is hidden inside you, the truth you've been ignoring for so long. You can try to run, try to control the pain, but it will always find you." The millionaire took a step toward her, his eyes locked on hers. "Enough. What you're saying doesn't make any sense." She looked directly into his eyes, and for a moment he felt as if she were seeing straight into his soul. "You forgot what you lost. You forgot what truly matters." Those words hit him with a force he wasn't expecting. A wave of painful memories flooded his mind. He closed his eyes, trying to push away the images that surfaced, but he couldn't. Scenes of a life he had tried to leave behind, of a lost love, of a tragedy he had never overcome. A deep pain he had buried under his relentless pursuit of power and wealth. Everything he had built had been an attempt to bury what haunted him. Isabella didn't move. She just watched him as if she already knew what he was thinking. "You can't run from yourself. No matter how hard you try." "Is this a game to you?" he asked, his voice nearly breaking. She shook her head, more serious than ever. "No, it's not a game. It's the only way for you to find true freedom. You need to face what's buried inside you. And I'm here to help you do that." The millionaire felt a growing pressure in his chest, as if he were about to collapse under the weight of a truth he refused to face. He looked at Isabella, his eyes searching hers for an explanation, but he knew she had already said everything he needed to hear. "I can't do this alone," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "I can't face what's back there." Isabella stood up, walked over to him, and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone. I've been waiting for you. Waiting for the right moment for you to see the truth." The millionaire sat down, his mind spinning with everything he had just heard. Isabella's words echoed in his head like a distant refrain. He knew his life was about to change in an irreversible way. He didn't know if he was ready to face what was coming, but he also knew he had no choice. Isabella slowly stepped away, and as she left the room, he heard her say one last thing. You're going to need more than money to save yourself. But I will help you find the only thing that truly matters. After the conversation with Isabella, the millionaire spent days in seclusion, re-evaluating his life, his choices, and the truth she had thrown in his face. Every moment seemed to be filled with the sensation that he was losing control of something he never knew he had. He had always believed that power and money were the answers to everything, but now he was beginning to question whether the real key to his life lay elsewhere. Isabella hadn't appeared for some time, but her absence only increased the pressure inside him. He felt her presence in the shadows, as if she were waiting for the right moment to return and guide him even deeper into the turbulent waters of self-discovery. But deep down he knew that the only way to truly move forward was by facing what she had already hinted at, the past he had buried. On a rainy morning, the millionaire woke up with a strange feeling. Something was about to happen. He didn't know what, but he felt he could no longer delay confronting the parts of his life he had tried to escape. He got up and, without hesitation, went to the attic of his house, a place he had always avoided. That was where the boxes, the albums, and the objects of his past were kept, covered in the dust of time. He opened the door reluctantly, the creak of the wood echoing through the silent house. Inside, the musty scent of old memories filled the air, but he didn't hesitate. He began rummaging through the boxes. Every object he pulled out seemed to be a reminder of a time when he was different. A time when he still believed in love, in people, in simple happiness. But then the pain came and he abandoned all of it, choosing instead the cold pursuit of success and material conquest. That was when he found what he was looking for. An old letter, yellowed with age, written in his own flawless handwriting. With trembling hands, he opened it and read the words he had written to his first and greatest love, the woman he had cherished before losing everything. She had been with him at the peak of his youth when he had nothing but dreams. They had loved each other intensely, believing that nothing could separate them. But something happened. He knew something had happened, but he had always refused to look directly at that pain. The letter spoke of dreams, plans, promises of a future together, but it also mentioned fear, the fear of not being able to build a life with her, a life without wealth, without the luxury he now enjoyed. The fear of being inadequate, of failing. She had asked him to follow his dreams, to achieve everything he could, but deep down he knew she also wanted him to stay true to who he really was, to who they were together. As he finished reading, he felt a weight in his chest. The truth about what had happened between them was simple yet crushing. He had chosen to chase his ambition, leaving love behind. He hadn't realized at the time that he was making such a final choice, but now he saw that in pursuing wealth and power, he had destroyed the most important thing in his life. At that moment he felt a deep sense of regret, something he had never wanted to face. He stood up, feeling the anguish tighten around his throat. Isabella's words echoed in his mind, "You forgot what you lost." She had been right. He had lost something far more valuable than any material possession or achievement. As the millionaire struggled to process this revelation, the attic door slowly creaked open, and he saw Isabella standing at the entrance. She didn't say anything, but her eyes seemed to understand exactly what he had just discovered. "You're starting to see it now, aren't you?" she asked, her voice soft but full of understanding. He looked at her, still shaken, unable to hide his shame. I thought success was everything. That if I was powerful, if I was rich, nothing else would matter. But now I see. I lost what truly mattered." Isabella took a step closer, her eyes locked onto his. "Yes, you lost. But that doesn't mean everything is gone. What you lost can still be recovered, if you truly want it." A wave of conflicting emotions washed over him. He desperately wanted to believe her words, but the fear that it was too late paralyzed him. "Do you think there's still time? That she could still forgive me? That I can fix everything I did?" Isabella didn't answer right away. She simply watched him with an unwavering calm. "Only you can know if there's still time. But if you keep running, the pain will consume you. And I can't save you from that. The decision is yours." The millionaire stood at a crossroads, knowing that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time he no longer felt the need to run. He knew he would have to face his own shame, his failures, and somehow try to rebuild what he had lost. He looked at Isabella, his gaze steadier now. "What do I have to do?" She finally smiled, a smile that carried the weight of wisdom and compassion. "Now you begin the journey of redemption. The first step is to look at what you truly want, not what you think you want." After the conversation with Isabella and the devastating revelation about his past, the millionaire knew he had to act. It wouldn't be easy, he knew that. But something inside him had ignited, a flame of hope mixed with regret. He understood now that the road ahead wouldn't be simple, and that what he sought couldn't be achieved with money or power alone. In the days that followed, he tried to rebuild his emotional life in a way he never had before. His empire was still there, solid as ever, but what he truly wanted now was to reconnect with his essence, with the roots he had buried beneath pain and ambition. He felt he needed to find what really mattered before it was too late. The first step was to search for her, the woman he had left behind. He didn't know where she was, but he remembered something she had always said: "Life is made of choices, and our choices always have consequences." Those words, now carrying a bitter sting, made him realize that perhaps he had one last chance to correct his greatest mistake. With the help of old friends and contacts, he started following leads. He traveled to small towns, places he had never thought of visiting, searching for answers. Every step taken, every street walked, weighed heavier on his heart. But he knew he couldn't turn back. The mistake he had made was too great, and he had to face the consequences of his choices. After weeks of searching and uncertainty, he finally found her. Not in a grand place, but in a small house in a quiet town. She looked different, yet she still had that serene smile he would never forget. The moment he saw her, a whirlwind of emotions took over him. He didn't know what to say, but he knew there was no more time to waste. She looked at him for a moment, as if recognizing the pain in his eyes. "You came back," she said, her voice calm but unreadable. "I didn't know what I was looking for until now. I realize I lost everything that truly mattered, and I want to fix it," he said, his voice rough with emotion. She studied him for a moment, as if deciding whether he was telling the truth. "It's late, but not impossible. But before I can help you, you need to understand what you lost, and why you lost it." He knew his words were harsh, but he also knew she was right. He couldn't go back in time and undo everything he had done, but he needed to understand what had made her leave him. He had to face the pain he had caused, not just ask for forgiveness but truly redeem himself. "I understand," he finally said, "and I'm not running away anymore. I want to be a better person, not for myself but for what truly matters." They talked for hours, and he finally heard her story. What he hadn't known was that when he left her, she was pregnant with his child, something he had never imagined. She never told him because she believed he would never accept her with a child and chose to follow a different path. His heart tightened as he realized that in his pursuit of success, he had lost not only the love of his life but also the chance to be a father. The shock was profound. How could he have lost such a precious part of his life? The revelation of a child he had never known brought a new layer of guilt over him, something he had never even considered. How could he have been so blind? But she looked at him with a gaze that was both compassionate and firm. "I never blamed you. I knew you were lost in something bigger. But now, you need to understand that people cannot be used as a means to an end. Love is not a transaction, and you have to learn that." Those words hit him like a bomb. He realized that despite everything he had achieved, he had never attained what truly mattered: his own humanity. "I want to do things differently now. I want to be part of the life I abandoned. Let me try at least to fix this," he said sincerely. She was silent for a moment before speaking softly. "The road to redemption is long, but maybe you're ready to begin." With that, he understood that while he couldn't change the past, he had the opportunity to build something new. The road ahead would be tough and full of challenges, but he was no longer alone. He had a chance to find peace, and maybe even a new beginning. After the transformative meeting with his former love, the millionaire knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. He had already made the decision to stop running from his failures and to finally seek redemption, but he had no idea how far his transformation would take him. The pain of the past still weighed on his heart, but a new force was driving him forward. He was no longer just chasing success and power. Now he was trying to rebuild what truly mattered: his family, his humanity, and his inner peace. In the following months, he did everything in his power to regain her love and trust. He was present, not as the millionaire he had always been, but as a genuine man, willing to learn from his mistakes and become a better partner. He no longer wanted to be the man who abandoned, the man who walked away in difficult times, but rather the man who supported, who loved, and who valued what truly mattered. Every small gesture, every honest conversation, and every moment of vulnerability were crucial steps toward reconciliation. But the true test of his change came when he finally met the son she had given birth to. His son. He felt a mix of emotion and regret as he looked at the boy, now 8 years old. The bond he had always longed for but never had was right there in front of him, and at that moment he knew he would do everything in his power to be the father the boy deserved. The first meeting with his son wasn't easy. The boy was hesitant, as any child would be when faced with someone unfamiliar. But the millionaire was patient. He started spending more time with the boy, taking him to play in the park, reading him stories, and most importantly, listening to him. He wanted to understand who he was, what he liked, and how he could be a constant presence in his life. The process was slow, but over time their bond grew. Finally, after weeks of dedication and love, the moment he had been waiting for arrived. He was sitting on the couch in her house, his son beside him, when the boy looked at him and said with a shy smile, "I like being with you." At that moment, the millionaire felt his heart fill with a happiness he had never known. It was as if all the pain of the past had been softened, and he began to realize that what truly mattered was not the material wealth he had accumulated, but love, connection, and the chance to build a future with the people he loved most. The woman he had always loved, his former passion, also began to open her heart to him again. Over time, she saw sincerity in his actions, not just in his words. She realized that he had changed and that, just like him, she also had her own wounds to heal. Together, they started rebuilding the relationship they had lost, not with the expectations of the past, but with a new understanding and mutual respect. Now more than ever, the millionaire understood the true value of life. He knew that the path to redemption was an ongoing journey, but alongside his family, he finally felt he was on the right track. He no longer needed luxury or a bank account full of money to feel complete. He had found what he had been searching for all along: love, forgiveness, and a new beginning. With his son by his side, the woman he loved, and the certainty that he could be the best version of himself, he felt that he had truly achieved what really mattered. No longer chasing power or recognition, but instead seeking happiness and genuine connection. And so, the millionaire found peace. His journey of redemption had not been easy, but it had been deeply transformative. He learned that life's greatest treasure is not in things that can be bought, but in the people we love, the moments we share, and the courage to be vulnerable enough to grow and change. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more emotional stories. See you next time.